Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Joe Knows the 2021 NFL Draft Class, where today we are going to be reviewing the Houston Texans. Now, Houston Texans fans, you know it, I know it, there's no sugarcoating it. You've been put in a really bad position. I feel horrible for you guys. Nothing like what's transpired over the past year and a half should happen to any fan base. Your favorite players that you've rooted for a while are gone. Your QB may be gone too sometime soon, and he's in legal jeopardy. It's a bad situation. That O'Brien clown left you guys in the worst position possible. It was so bad, it was almost like it was intentionally done. I'm not saying that's what he did, but that's kind of what it feels like, because it's like in order to really screw over an organization, you have to try really, really hard to do it, and he really did it. So I feel really bad for you guys. I think you guys are obviously in a rebuild. You're in rebuild mode right now. And normally, obviously, when a team's trying to rebuild, they've stockpiled a bunch of picks. That's not the case here because the O'Brien monster really screwed you guys over. Just pointing that out again, he really screwed you guys over. So you didn't have really all that many picks. You only had a total of around 5 picks. You didn't even have a first and second round pick. That's obvious. You know that. But what we're going to do here at Joe Knows is that we're going to focus on the positive. Your rebuild has started, and the day will come in the future, in a few years, where your team will be in a much better position. You will have additional picks over the next few years, I'm sure, and you're going to have a whole new generation of Houston Texans to root for, of the players to root for, and you're going to look back and hopefully what's transpired over the past year and a half is a distant and ugly nightmare, but in the past. So we're going to focus on the positive here. We're going to focus on what you did get. And there was some good value there, guys. So this is how you're starting off your rebuild. It's a bit of a baby step, but this is where we are, and that's what we're going to review. And I think you got some positive things to look forward to, and we're going to go over that in a second after we get through the bells and whistles. Again, where can you find our show? All over the place. Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, and Facebook at 2 different pages, Toilets to Titles page, as well as When a Family Breaks, which is where we do a lot of sports memorabilia trading. So check that on out too, because that's some pretty cool stuff there. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. These are metrics, improved metrics, help us a lot. We really, really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. All it takes is just a click of a button, just a fraction of a second. It would help us out a lot. Go on to Apple and give us that 5-star review. Even if you're not watching an Apple, if you have 30 seconds, if you can go there, give us a 5-star review. Greatly appreciate it. Again, it helps our metrics and it helps us get our show out to more viewers. And if you can, go to patreon.com/toilets to titles, and you can find out how to continue to support the show in other ways. So moving on to the content, the juicy content. You guys had 5 picks in total. Your first pick didn't come until the 3rd round. I realize that hurts, but let's look at what you got. Okay, you got some nice players with potential and value throughout every single pick that you did have. Okay, some of these guys have the potential to be future starters and even possibly your future starting quarterback. And at worst, I think you also got a chance at some nice quality backups in the later rounds. And listen, every team needs backups. It's not sexy, but once you get to the 5th, 6th, 7th round picks, I call those the stocking stuffers. If we're looking at these gifts and kind of like Christmas Day, you want those big presents under the Christmas tree. The latter picks, those are pretty much the stocking stuffers. Those guys count too, because even if not, sometimes they do wind up being excellent starters just as a surprise. It's always a great surprise when you can get a 7th round pick to be a starter. Doesn't happen often, but some of these guys wind up being really good and valuable backups. So let's go through your picks. Davis Mills, quarterback out of Stanford. I like Stanford talent. I got a Stanford QB here. Obviously, he wasn't one of the top echelon quarterbacks, but this is a guy who is, first of all, he's got some decent intangibles that you can't just teach. 6'4", 217 pounds. That's a nice size for a quarterback. The thing about this guy is that he had limited opportunities, but he did very well in those opportunities. So obviously he wasn't really going to go in the 1st or 2nd round. But I think you got in the 3rd round, Davis Mills, I think you gave yourself a real legitimate shot here at getting a future starting quarterback for yourself. I don't know if he's going to be, considered a franchise guy who's going to be like, a top 10 quarterback all the time, but I think you got a chance here at a future, possible future, a quality starting quarterback. Okay, let's say like an Andy Dalton in his prime. Okay, and I'm not dumping on Andy Dalton. I'm not going to sing his praises. He was what he was. He was a decent quarterback, who won quite a lot of games in his prime with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think that's what you got here with Davis Mills. This guy is a pocket passer. Me, myself, I love pocket passes. Yeah, I want guys to be able to scramble, but first and foremost, I want a guy who can stand there, can read a defense, wants to throw the ball, a guy who wants to throw the ball down the field, whether it's medium range or long range, not a guy who's just looking to dump passes off. And that's not Mills. Mills has got an active arm, and he's an accurate quarterback. And for the third round pick, for a team, an organization that's in the situation that you are, especially with your quarterback right now, I think, and your first pick being the third round, I think you did very well for yourself here to set yourself up for some potential with this guy. He's not going to be starting quarterback this year. I don't, even if Watson's not around this year, I would not be starting Davis Mills, at least not until the end of the year. He's got to, watch. He's got to learn. He's got to progress behind the scenes a little bit. This guy needs some time, but I think if given the right time and given the right supporting structure, both coaching wise and weapons wise on the field, I think he could wind up being a pretty good quarterback as a starter down the road, possibly next year. But he's going to need some time. But third round pick in the situation that you guys are in, I like this pick. I thought Davis Mills was a good investment, and I liked what you did here. I really did. Nico Collins, third round, 26th pick. This guy went exactly where he should have went, third round, given that this is a very deep wide receiver class. Now, this guy's not a burner, but this guy is a big dude, and I had my eyes on him for my team, the New York Giants, as a possible, third round pick or maybe fourth round pick if he lasted that long. 6'4", 215 pounds, like I have down here in the blue bar. The dude is big and he can catch the ball in traffic, and those guys are valuable. Yeah, you want a guy who can run routes really, really well, and you want another guy who's a speedster who can take a top off the defense, but you also want those big dudes who can box out defenders, who can jump for the ball, who can wrestle for the ball in the air, basically. And that's what this guy does. So, because not every ball is going to be perfectly thrown. Receivers, even guys who are good route runners, they're not always going to be wide open. If you're a guy who's going to have a lot of action on top of you, if you can get up and box your defender out, or at least muscle for the ball, that's needed as well. And that's what he got with Nico Collins. I like this guy a lot. Like I said, I would have liked him on the Giants in the third, fourth round, wherever they can get him. I had my eye on this guy, and I think you got a good receiver in the third round, guys. I really believe that. I think you should be happy with that, Texans fans. Moving on to Brevin Jordan. So you didn't have a first round pick, you didn't have a second round pick, you had 2 third round picks with Davis Mills and Nico Collins, and then your next pick was the 5th round pick. And here you got Brevin Jordan, which I am surprised he lasted to the 5th round. I thought he would go at least the 3rd round, maybe the 4th round. But I think you got an absolute steal with Brevin Jordan. I think he was one of the best tight ends in the draft in terms of potential. Okay, I definitely had a few tight ends ahead of him, but in terms of potential, I think this guy's one of the best who came out of this draft. And tight ends are very, very hard to project to the NFL coming out of college. But I think this guy, he can do it all. This guy can do it all. He's not a speedster, but he gets his receptions. He's got pretty decent hands, and he's a decent blocker. He's not a great blocker. He's not really great at everything, but he's pretty good at everything. And I think this guy could wind up being a good eventual starter for you. He's going to need other talent around him. This isn't a guy who, like a tight end, like an all-star tight end that you can build an offense around. This guy, but I think he could be a good, solid starting tight end, if not this year, then the following year. And I think when you actually get some more wide receivers, when you've got other good young wide receivers, maybe pick up as in next year's draft class, and if you sign some free agents, I think this guy can do a great job as a really nice complement to balance out your future offense. And again, this is about the future because you guys are rebuilding. This is where your rebuild has started. So I think you got yourself a really good some good potential here as a starting tight end in the future. And like I said, I think he can really absolutely wind up being a good complement to the rest of the young talent you're going to wind up accumulating. So this is a good baby step here. I like this. I like Brevin Jordan in the 5th round. Moving on, Garrett Wallow, I should say Wallow, out of TCU. I like TCU talent. I think they translate pretty well to the NFL. These guys, this is a school that pumps out a lot of 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round talent. And this guy here is a pretty solid linebacker. He's you know what? He's a tackling machine like I have here in the blue bar. He led his conference in tackles a few times, and he led his team in tackles at least 2, possibly 3 years that he was a starter there at TCU. And he also played some safety as well. So you got a guy who's a tackling machine and who possibly can offer you some positional versatility as safety. So it'll be interesting to see how Houston uses him, how they develop him. And again, this is a guy, I do think that he could possibly wind up being a starter. I don't think he's ever going to be a stud, but I think he could wind up being a starter. And I think at worst, I think he's going to give you some nice depth as a versatile piece at linebacker and safety. That's his potential. I think it's pretty good. And when you're talking about the back end of the 5th round, this is you're looking for versatility, and I think that's what you got with Garrett Wallow. So I think he did well here in the 5th round. I think he made the most out of what you were given, and I like it. And then your last pick, 6th round pick, Ray Lopez, defensive tackle out of Arizona, 6'2", 318 pounds. Now he's not particularly huge, even for a defensive tackle. 318 pounds is pretty big. Don't get me wrong, 6'2" is not like the biggest height for a defensive tackle. This guy was a run stopper at Arizona. He was pretty good, and he can play. Here's something else: versatility for you in the 6th round. He could play defensive tackle in the 4-3. He can also play nose tackle. So he gives you versatility if you're changing your alignments. If you're, I don't know who your defensive coordinator is. I don't know if you're changing the style of defense that you've had over the past few years. I don't know if you were 4-3 and you're switching to a 3-4 or vice versa. But whatever you want to do, this guy is going to offer you some versatility. So I don't know if he's going to be a starter, but I think he can be a darn good backup. He's going to offer you that versatility that you want. And some teams, like my team, the Giants, they kind of have like an amoeba defense where it's a base 3-4, but they have a lot of different looks. And sometimes they will have 4 guys on the line. Sometimes they'll have the 3 guys on the line. Sometimes they'll have 4 or 5 guys in the secondary. Sometimes they'll have 6 guys in the secondary. This guy will give you some versatility in terms of moving other defensive pieces around. I think that could be pretty interesting. So like I said, I mean, just given with what you had to work with, I think your front office in its first year did a pretty decent job. You guys are you're rebuilding from here, and I think this is where it starts. I think you're gonna look back and you're gonna say, hey, the 2021 draft class, wasn't so bad in terms of some of the players that it got us, leading us towards our main rebuilding, which is probably going to start next year. And that's it for the Houston Texans. But before you depart, just like to point out the Twitter handles for all the guys here at Toilets to Titles, where there's a whole bunch of us. There's like 9 or 10 of us now. Follow all of us. A great bunch of guys, and I love them all. You should love them too. And over here, please don't forget to give us that 5-star review on Apple. Hit that like button. Subscribe to our show on YouTube and wherever else you can find it. Podbean, Spotify, Apple. Follow us. You're gonna like what we do. We started off as, and we still are. We will continue to be mostly a fantasy drafts podcast, but we're also bringing on more NFL content as well. So you're going to see more and more of that as the season comes closer to beginning. So guys, it's been a great time. I had a great time talking about the Houston Texans. Texans fans, chin up. Brighter days will be coming ahead. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Take care.